Speak called Fair Play, where we turn the tables about and my guest gets to ask me a question about my own career in the arts. Now, with almost 40 years as a novelist, a poet, a playwright, a filmmaker, and as the CFO of Blue Legacy, a 501c3 nonprofit that educates, elevates, and empowers artisans, I love to talk about the arts, and so I have a lot to say. Gregor, you have a question for me today, which I do not know what it is. I am going to answer as honestly as I can.
Yes.
And
amazingly enough, I even know what it is.
I always do like when the person to ask me a question knows what that question will be.
Yeah.
All right, go for it.
So in your writing, how much of your own self are you putting into the characters that are seen there, particularly in leads and protagonists? You know, how much of yourself is reflected in these characters that you're writing?
I think that's a fantastic question, actually. And it's interesting because, Gregor, you live right now in one of the artisan residence on the Blue Legacy campus, the Cathedral. You mentioned it in our Speak interview. And you know that there's several buildings on the campus.
Yes.
And the one where the Blue Door studio, and there's 3 little apartments there, it has a really peaked roof. That roof is actually almost 1,000 square feet of attic space. Yeah.
That sounds usable.
Doesn't it though? I'll get you involved in that.
That's like, hello.
Yeah,
like,
right?
Go on.
Right? Okay, actually I'm really glad I mentioned it now. And this is actually, I swear to gosh, it's related. I was up there because there's file storage, you know, everything from like old tax records and things like that, but you know, it's like storage. And I was missing a box of my personal writing. And I thought, boy, I wonder if it accidentally, I've been with the company since I was 16. So I'm like, I wonder if as I moved with the company, if maybe one of my boxes got put in with their boxes. And yeah, it was. One of the manuscripts that was in that box was, we won't talk about how presumptuous this is, because I do believe it is,
Oh, no.
a memoir that I was commissioned to write, so at least someone had asked me to do it, but I was 20. And I'm like, no one should be writing a memoir at 20. But it was incredibly raw. And I mean, it was definitely a great writing experiment in that I think as adults, as older adults, we tend to censor ourselves more. You know, we feel that societal pressure. Also, who will read this? How will the people in my life feel? This was completely uncensored. It didn't even use fake names or rename anyone. So obviously it would have had to have been edited in some way.
I'm suddenly reminded of some cousin drama that's occurring in my family right now, but go on.
Okay.
I'll go into that. I'll keep people anonymous in that one, or at least the person who's particularly pissed off, but go ahead.
Okay, and as long as it's not Anne.
No, it's not. It's like cousins.
It's a cousin, that's right. Okay.
These are cousins.
Anne is Gregor's sister, who we were afraid might be a little miffed after the Speak interview, if she has bought a Kindle. If she has bought a Kindle, she's
just gonna be like, oh crap. She's gonna be like, I killed my own narrative, that one's on me.
So I had rejection slips. So I was commissioned to write the piece, I did, and then I had a falling out, a very personal falling out with the publisher. I didn't want them to have the book. I didn't want them to have any of my books. It turned into this big lawsuit, blah, 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 blah. My point here is, I then submitted the work as fiction to other publishing houses. And I collected my little rejection slips the way I did when I was in my teens and 20s. And I filed them with the manuscript. And the feedback I was getting time and time and time again was, this character, this isn't believable. Stuff like this doesn't really happen to people. And I think that, for good or bad, really shaped me putting myself into my work. When I had that bestseller when I was a teen, Escape to the Wind, the question I would get every single interview, the first question, okay, not every single, almost every, was, is the protagonist Tiger you? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. Oh, but they would never ask, are you one of the other characters? Yeah, I was, but I wasn't the protagonist. I was a very secondary character that I identified very, very closely with. I don't know if I will ever write a book where I identify or I create a protagonist that I feel like embodies me or that I embody, because it was really, at 20, I had no idea how to respond to those letters. I mean, you don't really respond to a rejection letter, but, you know, just emotionally respond. Like, what do you mean this doesn't happen to anyone? If you keep telling someone, it's almost like, it's the opposite of gaslighting, I guess. It's like if you keep telling someone that can't possibly be true, and I'm like, but I lived it. I mean, this isn't my perspective of it. These are facts. This is what I lived. I'm not talking about my emotions that then came from it, or even my perspective of why it happened. This is what happened. It is truth, but I'm continually being told this can't be true. So, do I write myself into my work? Yes, often, always secondary characters. Bit roles, I guess people will call them, like a character that has one or two scenes.
Right.
And is usually a emotional counterpoint to the protagonist, who needs kind of like someone to bounce an idea off of. Like, I am often the one outside perspective. In Angels of Anarchy, which you actually are a voice actor for the animated film, and you wrote Reticent, I saw myself, if I had to see myself as anyone, I saw myself, which people are going to think, well, this is the most arrogant thing in the world. And I'm like, no, you don't understand the film. This is literally one scene, and the character is dying. There's a Pope character, Pope Catherine.
Oh.
And she says, I'm at the end of my life, and I'm done. I'm done hiding the full truth from our, is it constituents? What is it? It's from the believers. And her bishop talks her out of releasing all this information out. In the end, the Pope does do something to, I think, kind of help her find balance at the end of her life. But I am a slap 'em down enemy of deathbed confessions. I don't believe in deathbed conversion. I don't think that you can say, I believe, in the final moments, and it means absolutely anything to anyone. I think that's garbage.
Now is not the time to be making new enemies.
Yeah. I hear you. I'm just saying from my perspective. But what I liked about that character, who has one scene, and it's not a glamorous scene, and certainly Bishop Astarte does, Bishop Benet does talk her out of it, seemingly quite easily. Benai. Is it Benai?
Is it?
You have better pronunciation skills than I do, Gregor.
You wrote the character.
Oh, come on. Well, actually, to be honest, I was going with a traditional name from the actor herself's real background. I was trying to be as authentic to that actress as possible. So, yeah. So I probably am.
I read it Benai.
Okay, so it's Banai. I believe.
I read that as Benai or Benai.
Astarte, which is her first name. So I just felt like Astarte kind of talked her out of doing this quite quickly. Now, you and I know that the Pope does go ahead and do something, but so I saw myself as Catherine. Whether or not I would play Catherine or voice Catherine was beside the point. It was kind of like, I wanted there to be a devout woman who was willing to say, we should stop doing this. Just kind of, it's time to revise this system of beliefs. So in that way I was there, but I don't see myself as any of the lead characters, nor have I ever.
It's almost like the polar opposite with me, because Miles Radiant because the Universal Defender is essentially an alternate timeline wherein I get to be in Universal Defender as Miles Radiant.
Yeah.
There are some people, like, of my circle of friends, what little one of them there is, who actually know Radiant as a fully developed character. Mm-hmm. And they're only just now, like, basically seeing how he got there. Mm-hmm. And this is a really weird and complex, if you know, then you know sort of thing.
Yeah.
But Radiant totally just is the ideal version of me. He is very much the, I'm everything you want to be. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm everything you wish you could be, right? And Universal Defender essentially being an alternate reality in which I am in this universe. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of funny that two polar opposites in that regard are here now.
Yes, no, I do really like that. Simulation theory, parallel worlds. I mean, do you feel that you are tapping into something from elsewhere when you are writing Radiant?
Not necessarily. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like, when I am writing the parts of Radian, I am asking, what would Radian do?
Right.
But that's when I'm writing any of these characters. Like a lot of this time, I'm very much kind of putting the characters in the situation, and I'm writing down what happens when they're there. Because okay, what would Jarek or Micah or Veralis or Mirka or Dora, what would they do?
Yeah.
What would they do here? Well, they do that, and I write that down.
Yeah. So you know your characters so well.
Well, I mean, yeah, because
yeah.
I hate to derail a little, but
no, it's fine.
These characters that I know so well and that are so real in their regard, they exist because they didn't, right? There is no Veralis in my life. There is no Micah. There is no Jarek or Arakai. And I've always been a very staunch believer of it's better to have no friends than shitty friends. And for me, it was like, I got a choice. I can either fall in with backstabbing gossipers or I can do something else. And what I did was I created, these other 6, right? The 7 characters that this posse of 7, they are the 7 of Steel and Doom, right? And they've existed to me because, they didn't.
Yeah.
Like these people do not exist in my life, so I had to create them myself to make up for it.
You crafted not only what you needed, what you wanted. Like you say, Radian is everything that you want it to be, as opposed to a creator creating in the image of him or herself. This was a creator creating. This is the
ultimate me.
Okay, there we go. And then to build the community around that character that you would want. Right.
There's the advisor council essentially, right?
Yes.
And I am definitely looking forward to writing the parts where Radian is Radian and gets to act like Radian. Right. And yeah.
What's your writing routine? Do you have one? Do you write every day or?
I really don't have a routine. That's fine. I know some people really like to talk about how I do this and this and this and that. The truth is I really don't.
Yeah.
Because I can't control when I'm ready to write. I know that if I try to force myself to write, it's gonna not do too great.
Yeah.
But one of the I do have another fantasy novella that is very close to completion. I'm just in the editing, the writing itself is done.
Yeah.
Where I resolved to work on it exclusively while stoned on edibles or drinkables. And boy, it's a trip. It's actually staggeringly well written even for me, and I'm like, why is stoned me a better writer than me? There's some really killer lines in that one, and I'm like, wow, I wrote that? But no, I wish I could say I have a routine, but I really don't.
It's I'll share something with you that only my immediate family knows. So only my daughter, my son, my wife know. Right, and you're like, this is going to go on the internet, right? Well, hey, let's pretend it doesn't. Because I think there's something to what you just said, actually. There's a truth. There's a seed of truth there. What is that makes us better writers when we are under the influence? There was a project that Blue Forge Press did, which you probably know about, called the Trinity Project, where 9 authors that were really, really different people, every month for 12 months, were sent on the first of the month a writing prompt, a 1 sentence, and they were to read it, and then whatever they were inspired to write. You didn't put the prompt in your story, this wasn't junior high or anything like that, but it was just you read this prompt, write a story. It's like that. It's a flashpoint for people.
It's a seed.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. And
that's what one of my teachers.
Time after time, on the second of the month, writers go, "Oh my gosh, these prompts are mind blowing. Where are these coming from?" I'm like, "Oh well, here and there, here and there." No. So all 12 prompts I wrote win high, and I'm just like, I want these because I was one of the authors, and I was like, I want really good prompts because I haven't really I had never really written from a prompt before.
Right.
And actually, that idea, writing from a prompt, I kind of an anti-authoritarianism would bristle up in me and be like, basically, to heck with you. Don't tell me what to write. Don't tell me what my flashpoint is. I have my own flashpoints. But I really wanted to participate in this project.
Right.
So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to kind of remove myself in a way and see what comes of this. And it was interesting because I'm like, wow, boy, I would have thought of that. Never would have
There's-
thought of that sober. Never.
Yeah, like I'll definitely tell you which one it is when I actually like send it once it's all
Please,
out.
yeah.
I'll tell you which one is the one that I promised myself I would only work on while higher than the International Space Station.
Yeah.
But yeah,
The fact that you still know what words are
yeah,
when you're that high, I think is impressive.
yeah. Because I know I've tried both areas of influence, whether alcohol or THC. And the problem with alcohol is that I just can't hit my keyboard right at that point. It's a kinesthetic compromise that I've discovered there's a really very delicate balance I can maintain where it acts as a lubricant.
Yeah.
But I just teetered over and then there goes my kinesthetics. And I consider myself a very kinesthetic person. I like to be very aware of where I am in space. And so, actually, it's funny because my drunken walk actually looks like essentially, an alien who beamed down to Earth, and their data on human gaits is basically basically they watched 10,000 hours of people walking and then constructed the perfect average walk. And by being perfectly average, it itself is weird.
Okay.
And I'm almost hesitant to tell this story because the other person involved might get mad at me for telling it.
Can we completely change their name, gender, age?
Okay, yes.
Okay, yeah.
I'll even change the circumstance of what happened.
Cool.
So we were going. So me and this other individual, we were going to an open mic. And we're both rather professional people. We try not to, we were like, okay, let's only have drinks after the open mic. But then we ended up doing a pub crawl before the open mic. We were on each, and only much later did we even realize it was a pub, that it fit the definition of a pub crawl. And we did the open mic while one of us was on 3 pints, the other was on 5. And that 5 guy was me.
Okay.
And we both walk into the place where we're going to perform. And I'm doing my perfect average human walk. But it literally just looks like this is what the ultimate average walk is, right?
Yeah.
This is how you but and then only a year later where we did a pub crawl just before a professional music gig. And nobody noticed. And it completely flew under everybody's radar somehow. And we even played correctly.
Well, it just goes to show, some of the best things can happen under the influence. Which, I guess I should throw out, just to be responsible, THC, well, alcohol, yes, of course, but THC is legal in Washington. We are in Washington.
Yes.
So,
know your limits, everybody.
Right, know your limits.
Understand yourself.
21, come on, guys.
I understand
blah, blah, blah.
myself. I know how much I can do. I like to be very aware of myself.
So please find the full Speak interview with Gregor and myself on our channel, in addition to other Speak interviews and Fair Play interviews. Thank you today for watching, and I'll see you